I'm going to interview Andrew for about 15 minutes. And then after that, there'll be opportunity for any of you to equally ask any questions that you have from Andrew. So Andrew is one of the sponsors, Andrew Bingham Funeral Directors. So welcome, Andrew.
Yep.
That's great.
Morning.
Morning. It's great to see you, Andrew. Thank you.
And you?
Thank you for joining us. And we're just going to explore with you really what life is like for you running Andrew Bingham Funeral Directors, and really any kind of top tips that you have for us. You know, the theme is bounce back for business, and the idea is we chat to each sponsor over these next 3 days. It's just discovering what they have done to bounce back for business, to see if there are any top tips that we can kind of learn from this as well. So it's great to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, well, I'm sure looking around the group, there's quite a few who know me, and for those that don't, I'm sort of a relative newcomer to Suffolk. I moved down here in 1989 from the north, and I'm married to Heidi. We've been married 25 years this year, and when we married, we moved to Stowmarket, and I could see, I suppose, as Stowmarket grew over the years, and that's what sort of made me start the business, really. We could see how Stowmarket was growing. There was no independent funeral directors. I'd been working for funeral directors in Ipswich previously to that. Originally, I started working as a funeral director up in Sheffield and Chesterfield. Came down, like I say, in 1989. And was working in Ipswich, and when we married and moved to Stowmarket, I sort of decided, I spoke to my last boss and about possibility of opening a business in Stowmarket, and he didn't seem bothered, and we thought we'd do it ourselves. So we've been open now 15 years in November.
Yeah, fantastic. So in one sense, he missed a trick, but actually we get to have you obviously running your funeral directors, which I know personally some relatives of mine, have really been thankful of the service that you've brought.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for giving us a little bit of history about yourself as well, and kind of how you've come to run the business. Now, one of the things we're considering as business at the moment is just how we respond to the challenge that we've had, and lockdown's been a real challenge. So I just wondered, how have you responded to the challenge yourself as a business? Have you found it's been a challenge under the last kind of 14 months and the lockdowns that we've had, and how have you responded to that?
It has. I suppose we've been in a slightly different situation because with the nature of our business, we've continued to obviously be operating, although under tighter restrictions. Health and safety has been, as you can imagine, has been a massive thing for us, because we've been dealing with people with COVID, dealing with families who have dealt with or have got family members who've got COVID. So the restrictions that families have had on them it's just been awful. In the very beginning, we were limited to 6 people to funerals. We've had situations where there's been family members, sort of sons who've not been able to attend the parents' funeral because there's only been 6 people allowed to come. So managing that from a personal side, sort of taking that from a personal sort of point of view, that's affected us because, it's just not nice to see. And equally with our staff as well, because we've had members of staff who in the beginning didn't really think COVID was an issue, and other members of staff who thought COVID was a massive issue. So trying to manage, trying to keep, at the end of the day, we're not experts, or I'm not an expert in COVID and what is. So we've had to try and make common sense or a reasonable decision of how we operate and how we carry on forward from that.
Yeah. So what you've experienced, I guess, is dealing with the emotional challenge of working with your team, with the public, your customers as well, what they're having to deal with, but also have that ability to kind of work out, what's the map in a territory that's never been done before, and kind of write new paths through things. So you've really had to learn to adapt in these circumstances. So how have you learned to do that, and kind of what have you what have you learnt from this that maybe we can learn from too?
That's a difficult one because I don't know. You say what have we learned, or we've had to learn. We've just had to get on with it. Really, what we have found is all the other independents. We made a group on Facebook, between a private group between all other independent, or the independents, I suppose, that we work with in the area. So like Bury St Edmunds, where Mildenhall and Brandon. We've sort of made a group together, and we've all been putting it. If we've had a question on there, we've sort of sent that out to the group saying we've had this situation arise. How are you dealing with that? We belong to two national organisations, SAFE and the NAFD, which are two funeral organisations. They've not always been the quickest, because the problem is the rules changed so quickly in the beginning that one day this was all right to do that, the next day it wasn't. Yeah. So we were constantly looking at emails that were coming from SAFE. They seem to be more proactive than what the NAFD were. And I think the other thing is we've had to be careful as well, as we want to be anyhow, but we've been under the spotlight. A lot of funerals now have been webcast. And so you know even more so we're always in public view, because you know people and attendees, mourners, are always watching us. But even more so now because it's been recorded as well. So yeah. I know there was issues in the beginning because they would start the webcasting of funerals 5 minutes before the funeral started and leave it going 5 minutes afterwards. Well, we would go into a chapel and start talking and saying to the organist or the person at the back of the crematorium, you know, we want this and we want that. And equally in that, as you walk in, your natural thing is, oh, hello, have you had a nice weekend? Have you had this? And suddenly you had to stop that because you could have got 300 people watching your every move. And I know, fortunately, we weren't one of them, but we had an email from the crematorium saying, be careful how you act in the beginning, because there has been some people who've had complaints made against them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is, you know, really challenging situation for you, a need for sensitivity as well. Mm-hmm. And as you say, well, yeah, what did we do? Well, what I'm hearing you did was that your networks are really important. Mm-hmm. And you form you kind of strengthen those networks to be able to judge, is the decision we're going to make a right one, to use people as sounding boards, you use national bodies as well to get advice. Now, I know as businesses, you know, hopefully the lockdowns are reducing and, you know, the restrictions are reducing, but it's still that same principle as we are looking to bounce back. Use your networks, actually talk to others and find out what they're doing, get advice from one another. Really important thing that I think, you've learned from doing that, and that's hopefully helpful to other businesses. One of the things that helps us bounce back is around kind of marketing. So have you found any challenges with marketing your business during this time, and have you had to change that? Do you have any tips from what you found just in terms of getting the news of your business out there to customers?
Yeah, we have changed how we obviously the business that we're in, it's a sensitive subject anyhow, so it's not something that we walk down the high street with billboards sort of promoting. So yeah. we're always careful on how we do that anyhow. What we have done is actually pulled back on advertising. We've had we heard of, and it wasn't the funeral director's fault. As you'll probably, as everybody gets, you get all this posting through your letterbox and things, and one of the things that funerals do, or funeral directors do, and that is pre-arrange funeral plans. And so every so often you'll do a campaign of how that works. We have to use a funeral planning provider. We use a company called Golden Charter, and so they will sponsor a sort of marketing campaign in an area. And so we had to say and it's probably every couple of years we probably do that. So we'd heard the funeral directors, you sign up for that sort of 6 months in advance. So it's like the cogs of the wheel start going a long time earlier. So funeral directors had done that. Then COVID kicked off. And then at the start of it, then all of a sudden people were getting mailing letters on their doorsteps about pre-arranged funeral plans, and there was an awful lot of complaints made about that. So we didn't do, again, now and again on Facebook, we'll sort of just send a gentle sort of advert, or not advert, but just a gentle message out, if you like. And we just cut back on all of that so that we didn't want to be seen like we were the Grim Reaper, taking advantage of the situation, if you like.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing there is just thinking really carefully about your marketing. And one of our other sponsors that I think was going to be with us tomorrow will just share a little bit about that and how we can think carefully about marketing. So it's something that you found, and just thinking about what's the temperature out there at the moment, and
there was another unfortunate one that was in there, that there was one funeral director, and it got into the national press. They put a big poster up in the window, "Thank you NHS," and it was people, they meant it in the right sense, but it was all taken in the wrong sense. So we just got to be really careful how we sort of what we do and how we think about things. Really.
Yeah. So it is a case, again, there's a number of folks here that support around marketing, and it's perhaps tapping into some of them and just getting their advice on that to make sure we don't inadvertently make a mistake that's going to damage the business rather than promote it.
Yeah.
So as a business leader, it can be really challenging. In kind of what has helped you to actually to manage, from what you've said, there's been a lot of emotional stress involved for you and your company at this time, working with, customers, those clients who've, sadly been bereaved, but also your staff as well. So what's helped you kind of manage during this time?
I think really, and we've just by having a good team around us, I'm very fortunate. I work with my wife, so I think that helps in a way, because we both know what we're both going through, and I think we've lost one of our members of staff. He's been isolating now for getting on for 7 months now. So he was one of our main people. So one of the busiest times we've actually been a member of staff short, and it was strange because we've got one of our bearers who's over 70. He in the beginning said that he didn't want to isolate, although they recommended that they did, the over 70s. He said, "No, I'm carrying on," and we sort of said, "Well, that's up to you. If you want to, it's on your own." And he's very fit over 70, to be fair. He's quite happy to go and cycle to Aldeburgh and things like that. So he is a very active chap. And I think we just couldn't have done it without the great team that we've got. And, it's worked really well, to be honest.
So for you, it's been about team, and you're fortunate to have a team. And I guess for those businesses that perhaps are sole traders or work as their own on a company, it's about forming your team, isn't it? It's about networking perhaps, and making sure you've got people around you. That's really important. You're really, very much a people-facing business. So what have you learned has been important about working with people that other businesses perhaps might find useful to help them bounce back at this time?
I suppose looking at what's working and what's not, we've and try and respond quickly. One of the changes we've made in all of this is we've not been although we've been busier in quantity of funerals that we've done. We've carried out more funerals. They've been less elaborate, the funerals, because of like our limousine, we used to have 2 limousines. Now our second limousine, that probably went out 3 times in about a year. So we decided, right, we're going to sell that because it's sat there not doing anything. And when things get back to some sort of normality, if it picks up again, we'll look at buying another one then, and rather than just having it sat there. So we've not had to make massive changes like that. That's really the biggest change we've had. Supplies have been a bit difficult. We've changed our coffin manufacturer because they couldn't give us what we wanted, and so we've had to source coffins from a different manufacturer. So that really is the main things. that we've had to change, and we've not been like, you know, you in the national newspaper you see where people have done this is their business and they've had to completely stop that. And I think it's been incredible how they've really changed their resources and now manufacturing something completely different while this is the situation.
Yeah. So it's again that theory about flexibility and looking out for who your suppliers are and just considering those things as well. And in terms of people, I know when we chatted before, you know, you talked about just serving the people you serve. That's what we kind of titled this talk as well.
Yeah.
So has that been important for you, just to continue to serve people the way you've done before as a key part of your business?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that's brought it home to me more than anything, unfortunately, I lost my dad just before Christmas. And so it really brought it home to me what people have been, you know, we were limited to only 30 people allowed to come to his funeral. So you've got to say, well, you can come, you can't come. And you know, and so we actually saw ourselves what people have been going through. And I think, yeah, you've just got to keep everything in mind, what you're doing. And you know, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. And I think when I stop doing that, that'll be the day I stop doing it, really.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry to hear, Andrew, of your loss. That must have been really hard for you at
Thank
that
you.
time as well. And I guess that even in that story, there's something really important for us to just be reminded of, that actually you unfortunately saw it from your customer's angle because of what you went through, but just that reminder to see it from those that you're serving, see it from their angle. And as we're bouncing back from business, just try and see it from their perspective. And you've given us another reminder as well of just keep doing what you believe you're there to do. That's just holding fast to that vision and purpose for what you do. So that's been fantastic. So thank you, Andrew, for sharing those things with us. Our 15 minutes has flown by, and so we're now going to open it up to other people who may have some questions for us. And I believe we've got some questions. So let's see who we've got here. So Kate, I believe you've got a question for Andrew to kick us off with.
Yes, I do. Andrew, I mean, I know because you did my mum-in-law's funeral. It's a very stressful time, and people get very upset at the best of times. And I just wondered if you had any problems with any of the families almost blaming you for the COVID rules, which you were, you know, trying to explain to them.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a good point, and it was something I've missed off what I said there. I think the one thing that has come over in all of this, and is how much I've been in awe of people, how they've accepted every decision, and we haven't had, because I really, in the beginning, I was really quite worried, were we going to have people kicking off about things, and we haven't had one, us personally, we haven't had one family who've tried to bend the rules or say, if we do this, can we do that? If we do that, can we, you know? And so I'm just in awe of how people have accepted it and got it and carried on. We haven't had any problems.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Andrew. So it's open now for others to also ask some questions of Andrew, and just you might have a personal question for him around funerals, or you may have one just around how he's managed business and the changes, perhaps a particular question you're facing and you want to see if Andrew's got any insight on that. And Andrew will tell you if he has, and he'll say to you, nope, sorry, don't know, if he doesn't. And that's the whole thing. We can investigate that together as businesses. So we'll just wait and see. We'll either have a little tumbleweed moment now, or hopefully we'll have a few questions for Andrew.
I'll ask a question.
Just see. Yeah, we've got a question from Kim.
Yeah, Andrew, I mean, unfortunately, I lost my father to COVID as well during this time period. And it's very difficult. One of the things I found most difficult, and I don't know whether other people have struggled with this, is the time delay. Because obviously, very sadly, given the number of people who've been dying, it seems to have been that the crematoriums have been very backed up.
Yeah, it's been strange actually, because we've noticed, because we're based in Stowmarket, we use both crematoriums or both Ipswich and Bury St Edmunds. So there's two crematoriums in Ipswich, and then there's the one at Bury. And to be honest, there's been a backlog at Ipswich, but Bury hasn't been too bad. So there's not been massive delays as there has been in years gone by. I think because Bury St Edmunds has now got 2 chapels there, the backlog hasn't been that bad, to be honest. And so we've not had sort of the longest waits really have been 3 or 4 weeks.
Great, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Andrew. Now, Andrew, one of the things you mentioned in your talk is actually some of the changes that have happened. So, for example, you can go in on a kind of webcam now and watch funerals. In fact, I had the opportunity to do that for someone that I first started working with many years ago, and it was his funeral. Could zoom in on the webcam and watch, and that was a change that actually offered an opportunity. And so Tracy Gort has a question for you. Just around that whole issue of webcams. So, Tracy. Yeah. Do you want to unmute, Tracy, and ask your question?
Unmute everybody again. I'll give you.
Right, I've just asked Tracy to unmute, so hopefully she can click the unmute. Here we go. Lovely. Welcome, Tracy.
I wasn't allowed to unmute, Kim. Not me. And yeah, I attended my ex-mother-in-law's funeral in January, and there were only 15 allowed at that point. But we had my daughter and a number of others attended by web cam, and it was beautifully done. And do we now feel that innovation is going to continue more and more to allow people like us that sometimes live too far away or just can't attend these funerals? Is that going to be something that's going to become more norm?
I think it will. You always have been allowed, or not always, but it's not just COVID that webcast started. It's webcasting of funerals has been going on for quite a while now. It's just that it's not been the norm, and up to COVID happening, it didn't happen really, or didn't happen very often. But since the lockdown and that, I think people have started using it more and more. We have another facility on our website which has worked really well, and we have online obituaries so that we can people can we do this obituary on our webpage. People can leave messages of support, they can leave stories. So we've found, instead of people, because people have not been able to have wakes and things, we found, like I found certainly with my dad's, that I'd go on there every night and look at my dad's obituary, and there'd be more and more things left from people who I never even knew Dad knew, and loads of stories from people. So, and they wouldn't, because they're from Chesterfield way, where my dad used to live, they were people who knew him but wouldn't have come all the way down from Chesterfield, but they attended his funeral online, and also they left messages online, and it gives people a facility to pay donations online. So I think in some ways it's become more personal, but it's more impersonal as well.
Yeah.
But I think definitely people will use it more in the future.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people have done on that is we've had it where, like we had one last week, a funeral last week where the son lives in Japan. He wasn't able to come to the funeral because of isolating and doing and all that. So he sent us an MP3 of him doing a tribute that was played at the funeral. And so it was like he was there, but he wasn't. So technology has been fantastic throughout this.
Yeah. And I think it's been great to allow people to access funerals to say goodbye when perhaps they haven't been able to. So it's been a supportive addition. And I think that one of the things for us as businesses to learn is actually, as difficult as COVID and the lockdown has been, there are some things that have come along that have given us opportunities. So, how many of us would have really used Zoom before all of this came along? But actually Zoom opens up to things. So, it could be that some opportunities now for doing your business online actually spread your opportunities further afield, and there's some new technologies that have come in that actually we can continue to harness. So there's some things we can use there. So any other questions for Andrew? We've got about another 5 minutes. Olivia, you've got a question?
Yeah, it's not necessarily specific to your business, but I noticed that you said that you work with your wife. So any tips out there for other people that are perhaps working with a partner, would be interesting to hear.
Try and get somebody as understanding as my wife. I've just been told as patient as my wife. Oh, crikey. I don't know, really. Have I got any tips for that, Heidi? No, I haven't.
It's me that needs the tips.
Yeah, I think it's Heidi who needs the tips how to put up with me, really. No, we've worked together now for probably 8 years. And to be honest, being in this business, it's not a normal profession anyhow. It's a 24-hour job, or vacation, if you like. And so she's been used to me not switching the phones off at 5 o'clock and coming home. So I think, ever since we've been together, she's been used to me at whatever time getting a call and having to put my knife and fork down and walking out to go and see somebody or bring somebody into our care. So other than that, I haven't really.
Yeah, I guess, but one of the things that might be hard, Andrew, as you say, it's not a normal business, so to switch off can be really hard. But I guess it's a general top tip for those who work together with partners is trying to ring fence time for you just to be partners and friends and look after each other as much as do business stuff, isn't it? I guess do you make sure that you do that as a couple as well? So just
we used to do. We tried to and used to do, but the lad who's been isolated now for 7 months, because we have the calls 24 hours, so he would take it in turns having the calls with us so that we could have the time off and whatnot. But because he's been isolating, we've just constantly had the calls. So we've actually just been away up to Derbyshire. We just bought a static caravan up in Derbyshire, and we just actually had a weekend away, actually.
Good.
And it was, whose law, and I've been suffering with vertigo all weekend. So the one weekend I've been away, I've not felt the best. So.
Oh no! Well, that's well. Thank you for joining us today, Andrew. Especially if you've had vertigo and been unwell. But I guess there's a little top tip there for Olivia in asking, just in terms of still make sure you get those weekends away.
Definitely need time away. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Colin,
Yes.
can we squeeze in one more question? There's one up in the chat.
Yes. Who? See, I've got one from Alan, but who else have I got one from? Shelley. I've missed Shelley's question, so apologies, Shelley. Would you like to ask your question for Andrew?
Yes, it was, what is the strangest thing you have had to transport a coffin on?
What is the strangest thing? Crumbs. We've had several on tractors, motorbikes, lorries. Yes, we've gone up with a coffin on the back of a lorry. And then I can't think the name of the company now. We had somebody who was it was a removal company, and they came here in their removal wagon, and we put the coffin in the back of the removal wagon, and then that carried the coffin to the crematorium. A horse and cart, and obviously the horse-drawn hearses. We've had various different ponies and traps and things like that. So yeah, that's about as wacky as it's got, really. We've been escorted by several different vehicles. I suppose we had a lady who used to have an old Morris Minor van, and the son-in-law wanted that. And I said, she won't fit in there because I've got a Morris Minor van myself. And I said, I know she won't fit. He said, she will if we take the front seat out. So they took the front seat out and they transported her in the Morris Minor van.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Shelley, for your question, and thank you, Andrew. So I can see one more question here. We've just got a comment also from Julie Kett, where she's just said how she'd lost a treasured friend in February and also attended the funeral. And for her, it was lovely that she could do that, but also attend the funeral at one of her chapels in Bury St Edmunds. So one question from Alan. Alan, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thanks very much, Colin. Andrew, it's been a challenge for the churches as well, hasn't it, under these conditions? How have you found they've responded to that challenge? I mean, has that presented difficulties for you in terms of dealing with them?
It has. There's been no singing allowed. or some churches haven't allowed funerals in there. Stowmarket, St Peter and St Mary's, they just closed altogether. So we then, as you can imagine, that's probably one of the more frequent churches that we use. So we had to find the Stowmarket United Reformed Church would allow funerals, so we carried out several funerals there instead. The way that the churches, again, they've got their health and safety of how they run things, so we were getting sort of checklists from them of what we could and couldn't do. We've been sort of, we bought a new speaker, we've been sort of downloading music on the iPad, and so we've been playing sort of choral versions of hymns and things so that people could still have hymns, but people just not allowed to sing. So yeah, and in the beginning last year, we found when the weather was nice, we were actually having quite a lot of graveside services, which actually worked really, really well and was really nice, to be honest.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Andrew. And our time has flown by. So I just want to say thank you to Andrew for sharing his experiences and for studying a little bit more about the funeral business and the kind of really 24/7 that Andrew and Heidi kind of serve the people that they serve. So thank you for sharing what you've shared, Andrew. Thank you for our questions. And we'll all be going to give a kind of, visible round of applause, a round of applause. And thank you for being one of our sponsors and sharing your thoughts with us today. So thank you, Andrew. And we'll hand back to Kate now. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.